In un testo che ho proprio dedicato a Giuseppe Fortunato.
In a paper about Giuseppe Fortunato, once I wrote that those practicing my profession, that is to say, art critics, should go back to the good old habit of visiting the artist's studios. This is because by visiting the studios of the artist, as we once used to do, you can discover extremely interesting things. Well, here we are, in the studio of Giuseppe Fortunato. I can see on the wall a beautiful picture of Remo Brindisi, indisputable commanding figure of the Nuova Figurazione, coming from the Italian region Abruzzo, just like our artist. Their acquaintance, I think dating back to the beginning of the 80s, strongly pushed Fortunato to join that wonderful, even if tormented, adventure of living around planet art. By this, I don't want to say that Fortunato assumed the style of Remo Brindisi, but for sure the acquaintance with this great master encouraged him to deal with art, yet without being stylistically influenced by him. In this studio, there is an extraordinary collection of works, starting from the beginning of his expressive career, representing the different moments in language. They make me think of the most beautiful scene in Italian artistic history, European Italian history, Renaissance. That was the time when artists were not creating according to genres. On the contrary, they were masters of many languages and artists were at the same time architects, painters, engravers, and in the case of Leonardo da Vinci, scientists and anatomists, and so on.
Si era incisori, nel caso di Leonardo da Vinci si è stati anche scienziati, si è stati studiosi di anatomia e così via. Questa globalità del sapere.
It seems to me that Fortunato is going back to that global knowledge, that global artistic language following the principle of Renaissance. First of all, he is using several materials. He is definitely a curious artist wanting to taste, try, and test all the expressive possibility that all materials, from the ancient as usual to those available nowadays. Each and every material has its expressive capability, and being Fortunato very curious, he wants to experiment them all. But it is only the use of new materials that makes his picture comparable to that of ancient Renaissance. It is passing through several disciplines instead: painting, sculpture. In his history, there are performance and installations as well. His performances remind us of an expression defining a linguistic style, body heart, the heart of behavior. All this is taking us to conceptual art. Well, I think that Giuseppe Fortunato never forgot conceptual art. He is still practicing it, even when using the most usual and ancient techniques, even when he's painting in a traditional way. Why? What has traditional painting got to do with concept art? They have something in common as long as underlining the painting there is a strong idea, a strong concept, catalyzing the expressive reality.
Dietro l'opera pittorica si cela un'idea forte, un concetto forte che è il catalizzatore della realtà espressiva. Poi c'è stato un altro grande amore.
Later on, there has been another big love in the existential and artistic adventure of Fortunato. The second big love, actually, if in chronological order, it would be the first, but it is the second in his existential adventure, is American pop art. American pop art, which, to tell the truth, was born in England and then spread to the United States, made it possible to tell everyday stories, the one seen on television, newspapers, and billboards, as fact entering the aesthetic dimension. When this pop suggestion reached Europe, as very rightly stated by the great critic Alberto Boato, it assumed a new name because it assumed new poetics, namely the poetics of objects. Well, Giuseppe Fortunato has the extraordinary will of taking the soul out of the objects, allowing them to tell us extraordinary poems. Many of his works show evidence of this. The most strange and sometimes unusual objects, however objects, even three-dimensional objects, because objects are three-dimensional and gives way to the interest Giuseppe Fortunato has for sculpture.
A volte inusuali, ma sempre oggetti, quindi oggetti che sono anche tridimensionali, perché l'oggetto è tridimensionale. E questo apre la porta all'interesse che Giuseppe Fortunato ha per la scultura. C'è nella città in cui abita
in the town where he lives, within a project called Park of the Living Stones, there is an extraordinary and beautiful sculpture. After the miracle, a female body, maybe it's a metaphor of humanity, of existence. Maybe it's an ancient tale taken, why not, from the Bible, from the first sculpture where Eve, the woman, play a fundamental role, good as well as bad. Well, this sculpture and reaching the historical town of Cingoli tell us about the extraordinary love Giuseppe Fortunato has for plasticity.
Questo studio è pieno di opere plastiche.
This studio is full of plastic works. There are so many of them. They are interesting and anticipate the last linguistic adventure that I find simply exciting. It is the stylistic adventure of the drip paintings.
Semplicemente entusiasmante.